Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the quiet and often overlooked world of 12th century Persian scholars. Picture them, nestled among dusty scrolls and flickering oil lamps, deep in thought as they engage with ancient texts. You can almost hear the sound of quills scratching on parchment, the scent of ink wafting through the air. But don't be misled by this serene imagery. You probably once survived this journey into the mundane realities of their daily lives, filled with surprisingly monotonous routines. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from, so feel free to drop your location and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. In the heart of the 12th century Persian Empire, scholars were not the flamboyant figures of romanticized history. Rather, they were often ensconced in their libraries, spending hours buried in texts that ranged from philosophy to mathematics, astronomy to poetry. Their daily lives followed a rhythm that one might find surprisingly monotonous. They rose with the sun, their mornings punctuated by the ritual of washing and dressing in simple robes, possibly worn with an air of respect but certainly not any hint of extravagance. As they moved through their small homes towards their makeshift desks, you could find them pulling on a fresh quill, preparing to replicate the works of great thinkers that came before them. It's a routine repeated countless times, echoing across the dusty halls of their libraries. In a way, their lives resembled a never-ending cycle, little more than the act of transcribing knowledge for posterity. Historians still argue whether this lifestyle was fulfilling or stifling. On one hand, these scholars possessed the privilege of accessing knowledge, an elusive treasure in those times. On the other, the repetitive nature of their work must have felt like an endless loop of ink and parchment, devoid of the spontaneous joys that we often treasure in our own lives. Remember, these scholars were not merely copying texts, they were engaging with them, debating them, seeking to extract new insights and wisdom. As you think about it, can you picture a contemporary equivalent? Perhaps a student hunched over their laptop, tirelessly tying away on a dissertation, consumed by the desire to contribute something meaningful to their field. The dedication is palpable, even if the details seem mundane. Their humble existence was also marked by routines surrounding food. Breakfast might consist of bread soaked in water or a simple porridge made from grains, often flavored with salt, perhaps an olive or two if they were lucky. Lunch might be more of the same, nothing extravagant, just enough sustenance to keep them going. Historians often describe this as a reflection of their focus on the mind over body, a commitment to intellectual pursuits at the expense of culinary delights. It's a far cry from the lavish feasts we might associate with scholars in literature and film. Now, let's take a moment to consider the libraries themselves, the sanctuaries of knowledge where these scholars spent their days. These places were filled with manuscripts, carefully penned and preserved, but they lacked the grandeur we might imagine. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light that broke through the small windows, settling on stacks of scrolls and books. The air would have been thick with the smell of parchment and ink, a scent both musky and intoxicating for anyone who found themselves in the midst of such a repository of thought. In these libraries, the activity was not just about the solitary pursuit of knowledge. The scholars often gathered to discuss their findings, engaging in lively debates that sometimes led to heated arguments. Imagine the sound of voices, rising and falling, the clash of ideas swirling around like the smoke from an incense burner. They were intellectual warriors, battling not with swords, but with words, each striving to outwit and outthink the other. Yet, despite the vibrancy of their discussions, the backdrop remained one of stark routine. The same walls, the same scrolls, the same faces day after day. Scholars often travelled extensively to seek out new texts and ideas, yet when they returned, it was to the same patterns of life. This paradox of seeking knowledge while living in a predictable cycle is one that resonates through the ages. Many modern thinkers find themselves in similar ruts, caught in the everyday grind of academia, their passions tempered by the demands of routine. As dusk fell, the day would wind down. The flickering of candlelight would replace the bright sunlight, casting long shadows across the room filled with scrolls and ink. The discussions might turn quieter, reflecting a shift from the energetic debates of the day to a more contemplative state. The scholars would steal moments of solitude as they prepared for the next day's labours, pondering over the texts they had read and the ideas they had exchanged. In the end, the life of a 12th century Persian scholar may seem unremarkably mundane, but it was within this routine that they found purpose and meaning. They were the custodians of knowledge, the ones who would ensure that the ideas of earlier thinkers would endure beyond their time. Perhaps there's a lesson in their dedication, a reminder that even within the most ordinary lives, extraordinary things can bloom. As we delve deeper into the world of 12th century Persian scholars, one cannot overlook the significance of the manuscripts that surrounded them, the lifeblood of their intellectual pursuits. Libraries in this era were not the grandiose buildings we might envision today, but rather humble spaces filled with stacks of scrolls and fragile books, often penned painstakingly by Anne. Imagine a small room, dimly lit, filled with the scent of ink and old parchment, where the air is thick with the weight of knowledge just waiting to be uncovered. Writing was not just an art form in this time, it was a meticulous craft that required immense dedication. Scholars would spend hours scribing texts, each letter forming a bridge to the past and an invitation to the future. It was a slow, labor-intensive process that demanded precision and patience. They would dip their quills into pots of ink, carefully inscribing each character with the hope of preserving thoughts for generations to come. Historians still argue whether the act of copying texts was a purely mechanical task or a creative endeavor in its own right. Some believe that these scholars infused their own insights and interpretations into the texts they transcribed, while others maintain that their duty was strictly to replicate the original works without alteration. It's fascinating to think about how every scholar might have left a subtle fingerprint on the pages they touched, even if unintentionally. The importance of these manuscripts extended beyond mere academic study. They were status symbols, reflecting the scholar's dedication to knowledge and scholarship. Having a personal library, however modest, was a point of pride. Imagine a young scholar, beaming with joy as they acquired a new scroll, the anticipation of unraveling its mysteries filling them with excitement. For many, owning a collection of texts was akin to possessing a treasure trove, a way to elevate oneself in both intellectual circles and society at large. However, the preservation of these manuscripts was not without its challenges. The region was rife with conflicts, and scholars often faced the danger of losing their libraries to war or natural disasters. Think of them as guardians of knowledge, always on the lookout for ways to safeguard their precious texts. They would often collaborate with fellow scholars to store their works in safer locations, sharing the burden of preservation. It's reminiscent of modern collaborations, where researchers band together to protect and share their findings in times of uncertainty. One of the more quirky aspects of these libraries was their organization or lack thereof. Unlike our modern systems of classification, these scholars sometimes relied on their own idiosyncratic methods for sorting texts. Some would group works by author, while others preferred thematic categories, or even random assortments that only made sense to them. Imagine bustling around a library where the ancient works of Aristotle might sit alongside obscure poetry, all under the same dusty roof. It adds a certain charm to the pursuit of knowledge, doesn't it? In addition to the preservation of texts, scholars also engaged in the vibrant practice of reading and interpreting these works aloud. The ages-old tradition of storytelling. Picture this: a group of scholars huddled together in a candlelit corner, their voices mingling with the soft rustle of scrolls as they recite passages. They shared interpretations, debated meanings, and sometimes even playfully disagreed about the nuances of a single phrase. In a way, it was a lively form of intellectual exercise, akin to our contemporary book clubs, where opinions flow freely and ideas clash in a spirited but respectful manner. As you might expect, the discussion would not always be confined to the manuscripts. Scholars were known to engage in philosophical dialogues, pondering the nature of existence, the universe, and the human condition. Consider how these conversations must have echoed through the corridors of their minds long after the candlelight had faded. Historians often note that this blend of scholarly pursuit and spirited debate was fundamental to the intellectual climate of the time. It's a reminder that knowledge is rarely a solitary endeavor. It thrives in community and collaboration. When night fell, these scholars would often retreat to their personal spaces, their minds still buzzing with ideas. The act of reflection became a crucial part of their daily rhythm. They might take a moment to write in a personal journal, noting thoughts that sprang to mind during the day, or sketching out ideas for their future works. This practice of introspection, so vital in a world filled with distractions, remains relevant today. It's a timeless reminder of the importance of taking a step back and allowing ideas to simmer before diving headfirst into the fray. Yet, as we wrap up this exploration of manuscripts and libraries, it's essential to remember that the scholars' lives were not solely consumed by dusty scrolls and ink. They were vibrant individuals with passions, dreams, fears, and hopes. Their relentless pursuit of knowledge shaped not only their lives, but also the very fabric of society around them. As we journey through their world, let's keep in mind the enduring legacy of their work. The manuscripts they painstakingly copied and preserved laid the groundwork for future generations, creating a continuum of thought that transcends time and geography. In a way, every scholar was a thread in a vast tapestry, woven together by their love for knowledge and their dedication to share it with others. As we continue to explore the lives of 12th century Persian scholars, we must turn our attention to a surprisingly overlooked aspect of their existence: their wardrobe choices. Now, you might be thinking, wardrobe? Really? Isn't that just a bunch of robes? But hold on. There's a lot more to it than meets the eye. Their clothing was often a reflection of both their social status and their practical needs, revealing a fascinating intersection of identity, culture, and functionality. Picture a scholar in flowing robes, the fabric gently draping around them as they navigate the dusty aisles of their library. The most common attire included simple tunics, made from wool or cotton, paired with trousers. While these garments may sound rather plain by today's standards, they were quite practical for both the climate and the scholar's daily activities. The long sleeves provided warmth during cooler nights, while the loose-fitting designs allowed for comfort during long hours of studying and writing. Historians still argue whether the choice of fabric was purely practical or if it carried deeper social significance. Some suggest that the quality of one's clothing could indicate their intellectual standing within society. A scholar adorned in richer fabrics or intricate patterns might command more respect than one dressed in simpler attire. Imagine the quiet power dynamics at play in a room full of scholars, where a mere garment could signal authority or prestige. The color palette of their attire also offered insights into the subtleties of status. Lighter hues were common among the middle classes, allowing for practicality and easy maintenance, while deeper, more vibrant shades might be reserved for those who could afford to flaunt their wealth. Scholars would often wear colors that reflected the region's cultural traditions and the natural dyes available to them. Think of warm earth tones, vibrant blues and soft greens, each hue telling a story, perhaps even echoing the beauty of the Persian landscape itself. Now, while the classic image of a scholar in a robe may evoke thoughts of serious concentration, let's not forget that they too had a sense of style. Some scholars incorporated decorative elements into their attire, such as embroidered patterns or unique accessories. Imagine a scholar with an ornate belt cinching their waist, or perhaps a delightful cap perched atop their head, adding a splash of personality to their otherwise austere appearance. It's not hard to see how these little touches could bring a sense of individuality to their otherwise monotonous lives. However, the attire of a 12th century scholar was not without its challenges. The climate of Persia varied significantly, from the arid deserts to cooler mountainous regions. Scholars had to adapt their wardrobe accordingly, which meant layering garments and wearing lighter fabrics during warmer months while donning heavier cloaks in winter. Can you picture them navigating the extremes of the seasons, while balancing the demands of scholarship? It's a testament to their practicality and resiliency trait that resonates even today. In addition to clothing, scholars often wore accessories that held personal significance. Items such as amulets, rings, or even simple pendants were not just decorative, they often carried spiritual or protective meanings. Imagine a scholar reaching for a small talisman as they prepared to engage in a particularly challenging debate, a tiny reminder of their faith and purpose. It's reminiscent of how we might carry a lucky charm or a piece of jewelry that brings us comfort and confidence in our daily lives. Yet, for all their focus on knowledge and intellectual pursuits, scholars also understood the importance of social interactions and networking. Their choice of attire could play a crucial role in these encounters. Imagine a gathering of scholars, each dressed in their finest robes, engaged in lively discussions. The visual impact of their clothing could create a sense of camaraderie, drawing like-minded intellects together. Those who dressed with care were often seen as more credible and trustworthy, a phenomenon that echoes through history and remains relevant in our modern society. As the sun set on a scholar's day, their clothing also served practical purposes. They might have donned warmer layers as the temperature dropped, the cozy fabrics providing comfort during late-night study sessions. Picture a lone figure huddled over a scroll, wrapped in their robes, their thoughts illuminated only by the flickering candlelight. In conclusion, the garments of 12th century Persian scholars were more than mere clothing. They were a reflection of identity, culture, and the interplay of social dynamics. Their fashion choices, though humble by today's standards, revealed the complexities of their lives, offering insight into how they navigated their roles as both intellectuals and members of society. So, the next time you slip into your favorite outfit, take a moment to consider how much your clothing says about you. Just as the scholars of yore expressed their identities through their robes, we too weave our stories into the fabric of our daily lives. As we peel back the layers of 12th century Persian scholarship, it's time to delve into a rather delectable subject: food. Yes, food. While these scholars spent their days buried in manuscripts and debates, their culinary experiences were equally mundane and fascinating. Imagine the simple, unadorned meals that fueled their intellectual pursuits, often reflecting the agricultural practices and cultural traditions of their time. Breakfast in the life of a scholar often revolved around the most basic of staples: bread. Not the fluffy artisan loaves we cherish today, but rather a more rustic affair. Think of flatbreads, perhaps baked on hot stones or in simple clay ovens, served warm and slightly charred. Scholars would soak their bread in water or a thin broth, a practice that might seem odd today, but was not only practical but also made for a filling start to the day. Historians still argue whether this dietary choice was a reflection of the availability of ingredients or a cultural norm that prioritized sustenance over gourmet dining. Lunch, in a similar spirit, might consist of a porridge made from grains such as barley or wheat, often flavored with salt and occasionally accompanied by a few scattered herbs for a bit of flavor. Realistically, it was a far cry from the elaborate meals we might associate with famed scholars of literature. The repeated cycle of similar meals could have felt monotonous, yet they served a purpose, providing the energy needed for long hours of study. Despite the simplicity of their meals, there were moments of culinary delight. As scholars traveled to other regions or engaged in discussions with merchants, they were occasionally exposed to new ingredients and flavors. Imagine the excitement of tasting spices like saffron, cumin, or cardamom for the first time, each new flavor a gateway to a different world. It's much like discovering a new cuisine today. Those little bursts of flavor could invigorate the mind, inspiring fresh thoughts and ideas. However, let's not romanticize their meals too much. The reality of food scarcity during certain periods could lead to some rather uninspired choices. Scholars could have found themselves dining on simple legumes, such as lentils or chickpeas, often cooked into a bland stew. The act of eating could quickly become a matter of survival rather than enjoyment. Picture a scholar, exhausted from a long day of work, sitting down to a bowl of unseasoned lentil stew, staring into the depths of their bowl as if waiting for inspiration to bubble up alongside the food. Historians continue to explore the dietary habits of these scholars, debating whether their food choices reflected a commitment to a life focused on intellect over indulgence or simply the realities of living in a world where resources were scarce. One can't help but draw parallels with modern academic life, where many students subsist on instant noodles and coffee, sacrificing culinary joys for the sake of their studies. Moreover, let's talk about communal meals, for they played a vital role in the social fabric of scholarly life. Imagine a gathering of scholars, sharing a meal, their laughter and banter mingling with the aroma of the food wafting through the air. The act of sharing food fostered camaraderie and allowed for the exchange of ideas in a more relaxed setting. These communal meals could be an oasis of joy amidst the often serious discussions of philosophy and science. Much like today's dinner parties filled with animated debates, these gatherings allowed scholars to bond over their shared passions and aspirations. However, not every meal was a social occasion. The act of eating could also be a solitary experience, particularly for those scholars who preferred the company of their books to that of people. Picture them, hunched over a scroll, a bowl of porridge in one hand and a quill in the other, striving to absorb knowledge while nourishing their bodies. It's a scene that resonates across the ages, the struggle of balancing nourishment with the relentless pursuit of intellectual satisfaction. As the sun began to set, and scholars wrapped up their readings for the day, they might have found solace in a humble evening meal. The same flatbread, perhaps with a bit more heartiness this time, accompanied by goat cheese or olives if available. It's a reminder of the simple joys that can accompany even the most mundane of routines. In conclusion, the culinary life of 12th century Persian scholars was steeped in simplicity, practicality, and moments of surprising joy. Their diets, while often unremarkable, reflected their cultural heritage and societal norms, revealing much about the balance between sustenance and scholarship. As we ponder their meals, we are invited to reflect on our relationships with food, the rituals that surround it, and the comfort it provides amidst life's heavier pursuits. So, as you prepare your next meal, consider the scholars of yore and the ways in which their humble diets fueled their profound thoughts. After all, beneath the surface of every great idea lies the simple nourishment of daily life. As we continue to unravel the fabric of 12th century Persian scholars' lives, let's turn our gaze to their humble abodes. These scholars lived in modest quarters that were a far cry from the grandiose palaces we often associate with historical figures. Instead, they inhabited simple homes that reflected both their social status and their commitment to the pursuit of knowledge. Imagine stepping into a typical scholar's dwelling's mall, perhaps just a couple of rooms, with walls made from mud brick. The space would be sparsely furnished, with a few practical items and a wealth of texts lining the shelves. The absence of extravagance was not merely a matter of personal choice, but often a necessity dictated by their financial means. Unlike some of the wealthier merchants or nobles of the time, many scholars dedicated their lives to study and teaching, often at the expense of their material wealth. Historians still debate whether these humble living conditions were a symptom of their commitment to scholarship or a result of economic limitations. Some argue that the scholars' frugality was a conscious choice, a way to distance themselves from worldly concerns in favor of intellectual pursuits. Others suggest that many were simply not able to afford more luxurious accommodations. It raises an interesting question. How much does one's environment influence their ability to think freely and creatively? While their living spaces were modest, they were often filled with the essentials for both living and learning. Picture a low table surrounded by cushions, a few cooking pots, and, of course, an array of carefully curated texts. These homes might have been as cluttered with scrolls as with the everyday items of life. Imagine the walls adorned with shelves holding an eclectic collection of manuscripts, each one a portal to a different world and a different time. The sight of these texts must have inspired both awe and a sense of purpose. Despite the simplicity, these spaces were not devoid of charm. Scholars often decorated their homes with personal touches, perhaps a simple pot of herbs on a windowsill or a woven tapestry that brought warmth to the otherwise austere environment. This blending of functionality and comfort created a unique atmosphere, one that fostered intellectual thought while providing a semblance of homeliness and peace. In the evenings, as the sun dipped below the horizon, these scholars would often find solace in their abodes, engaging in quiet reflection. Imagine the soft glow of a single oil lamp flickering on a table covered with ink pots and parchment, casting shadows that danced along the walls as they sought inspiration or wrestled with a particularly challenging idea. This intimate setting created a space for deep contemplation, allowing thoughts to flow freely in the stillness of the night. However, living in such humble conditions also had its challenges. Scholars had to be resourceful, often making do with what little they had. Their homes might lack modern conveniences, and the constant need to balance work and domestic responsibilities could weigh heavily upon them. Picture a scholar, weary from a long day of study, yet still finding the energy to prepare their evening meal or tend to household chores. It's a reminder that even the most brilliant minds faced the mundane realities of life. Moreover, the community aspect of their living arrangements cannot be overlooked. Scholars often lived in neighborhoods populated by others who shared their intellectual pursuits. Imagine a cluster of homes, each one filled with the sounds of discussion and debate, where neighbors could easily drop by to share a meal or exchange ideas. These communal experiences enriched their lives, fostering a sense of belonging amidst the often solitary pursuit of knowledge. Historians still discuss the implications of these communal living arrangements. Some believe they fostered a spirit of collaboration and camaraderie, while others suggest there were underlying tensions, as competitive rivalries could emerge in such close quarters. It's fascinating to think about how the dynamics of living in close proximity to fellow scholars could shape their intellectual debates, much like modern academic circles where colleagues push and challenge one another. As we reflect on the lives of these scholars and their humble abodes, we are reminded that greatness often blossoms within the simplest of environments. Their homes, filled with the scent of ink and the weight of knowledge, became sanctuaries for thought and creativity. In the end, the modest living conditions of 12th century Persian scholars serve as a poignant reminder that the pursuit of knowledge is not always adorned with luxury and comfort. Instead, it is often characterized by resilience and determination. So, as you settle into your own space tonight, consider how your environment shapes your thoughts and creativity. After all, it is within the walls of our homes that we cultivate our dreams and aspirations, much like the scholars who came before us. As we continue our journey through the lives of 12th century Persian scholars, it's time to explore an often overlooked aspect of their daily existence, their social lives. While we might envision these scholars as solitary figures hunched over scrolls in quiet libraries, they were in fact vibrant members of a bustling intellectual community. Imagine them engaging in lively discussions, debating ideas and sharing laughter over meals, humanity thriving amidst the pursuit of knowledge. Picture a typical afternoon where scholars gather in a courtyard, their voices mingling in the warm air. The sound of animated debate fills the space as they exchange thoughts on philosophy, mathematics, or astronomy. Their conversations are punctuated by gestures and laughter, creating an atmosphere of camaraderie, In these moments, the scholarly pursuits of the day transform into something much more lively, a celebration of ideas and friendship. Historians still argue whether the social dynamics among scholars were primarily cooperative or competitive. On one hand, the sharing of knowledge encourages collaboration and mutual support. On the other, the pursuit of prestige in academic circles can breed rivalry. Imagine a group of scholars seated around a low table, each one eager to present their theories, while others listen attentively, perhaps ready to challenge or build upon their ideas. The potential for intellectual conflict adds an element of excitement to their interactions, much like friendly debates among colleagues today. In addition to intellectual discussions, social gatherings often included games and leisure activities. Scholars would engage in pastimes such as chess or backgammon, games that not only entertained but also honed their strategic thinking. Imagine the concentration on their faces as they plotted their next moves, the tension rising with each turn of the pieces. These moments of play provided a much-needed respite from the rigors of intellectual labor, reminding them that life is not solely about the pursuit of knowledge, but also about enjoying the company of others. The social dynamics of their lives were further enriched through communal meals. Picture a group of scholars sharing a meal, passing around dishes of lentil stew and flatbread, their laughter echoing through the air. These gatherings fostered connections, allowing them to build relationships and share experiences beyond the confines of academic discourse. Just as we find comfort in the company of friends over a meal, these scholars derived nourishment not only from food but also from each other's ideas and companionship. As the sun set and the day came to a close, the gathering might transition into a more serious discussion of philosophical or scientific ideas, with the warm glow of oil lamps illuminating their animated faces. Imagine them leaning forward, eyes sparkling with excitement as they dissect a complex concept or share a recent discovery. These late-night conversations often fueled their intellectual pursuits, intertwining camaraderie with the passion for knowledge that defined their lives. However, it wasn't all laughter and light-hearted debates. The academic environment could also foster tensions and rivalries, particularly when disagreements arose over interpretations of texts or competing theories. Picture the scene, a heated exchange, voices rising as one scholar passionately defends their viewpoint while another counters with a different perspective. The stakes are high, and the outcome of the debate could influence reputations and future collaborations. It's a reminder that even in the pursuit of knowledge, human emotions and egos can complicate interactions. In the midst of these social dynamics, let's not forget the role of mentorship. Experienced scholars often took on younger apprentices, guiding them through the intricacies of their respective fields. Imagine an elder scholar, their eyes twinkling with wisdom, sharing insights with a budding intellectual eager to absorb knowledge. This relationship mirrored that of a master and apprentice, where learning extended beyond the pages of texts and into the nuances of life itself. Historians still discuss the impact of mentorship in shaping the next generation of scholars. Some argue that these relationships were instrumental in fostering a love for knowledge, while others point to the potential for dependency on established figures. Yet, the joy and excitement of learning from someone experienced in the field cannot be overstated. It's much like today's student-teacher relationships, where inspiration sparks a lifelong journey of discovery. Ultimately, the social lives of 12th century Persian scholars were rich and multifaceted, characterized by a blend of intellectual collaboration and personal connection. From spirited debates to shared meals, they found joy and meaning in their interactions, weaving a tapestry of community amidst the pursuit of knowledge. As you reflect on this aspect of their lives, consider the importance of social connections in your own journey. Just as these scholars thrived in the company of their peers, we too benefit from the friendships and relationships we cultivate. So, whether you're sharing a meal or exchanging ideas, remember that the bonds we form can enhance our understanding of the world and enrich our lives in ways we may not initially realize. As we shift gears in our exploration of 12th century Persian scholars, let's delve into the profound influence of religion on their intellectual pursuits. The Islamic faith permeated every aspect of life during this period, shaping not only the scholars' beliefs, but also their methods of inquiry and understanding of the world around them. Imagine a scholar seated in their study, surrounded by texts that intertwine the spiritual with the scientific, their thoughts reflecting the rich tapestry of Islamic teachings. In the context of scholarship, religion was not merely a backdrop, it was an integral part of the fabric of inquiry. Scholars were often driven by a desire to harmonize their understanding of the universe with their faith. The quest for knowledge was seen as a form of worship, a way to better grasp the divine order of creation. Picture a scholar poring over ancient texts, contemplating the cosmos, striving to comprehend the intricate workings of the world as a means to draw closer to God. Historians still debate the extent to which religious doctrine influenced scholarly pursuits. Some argue that the vast body of Islamic texts inspired a rigorous approach to science, philosophy, and mathematics. Others maintain that the constraints of religious orthodoxy limited certain inquiries, pushing scholars into particularly narrow realms of thought. The reality, of course, is likely a blend of both perspectives. For many scholars, the teachings of the Quran provided a framework within which they explored various disciplines, be it astronomy, medicine, or philosophy. The Quran itself emphasizes the importance of seeking knowledge, encouraging believers to reflect on the signs of God in the natural world. Imagine a scholar, inspired by these verses, embarking on a quest to uncover the mysteries of the stars. Their observations of celestial bodies were not merely academic exercises, they were acts of devotion, blending the sacred with the empirical in a harmonious pursuit of understanding. Moreover, religious institutions played a crucial role in the lives of these scholars. Madrasas, or Islamic schools, served as hubs of learning where students could engage with both religious texts and secular knowledge. These institutions fostered an atmosphere of inquiry, where scholars and students alike could engage in discussions that spanned diverse subjects. Imagine the vibrancy of a madrasa filled with the sounds of lively debate and the rustle of parchment, an intellectual sanctuary where faith and reason coexisted. Interestingly, the interplay of religion and scholarship also extended to the translation movement of the time. Scholars sought to translate ancient Greek and Roman texts, often discovering that these works echoed the philosophical arguments found in Islamic teachings. Picture a scholar hunched over a text, pencil in hand, as they painstakingly translate Aristotle's writings, weaving in references to Islamic principles. This blending of ideas not only enriched their understanding but also fostered cultural exchanges that would transcend borders and influence generations to come. Yet, as we explore the influence of religion, we must also acknowledge the tensions that arose. The very nature of scholarly inquiry could sometimes lead to conflicts with religious authorities. Imagine a young scholar presenting a novel idea, only to be met with resistance from conservative factions who viewed such thoughts as heretical. The struggle to reconcile personal insights with established religious doctrines mirrored the challenges faced by intellectuals throughout history, creating a complex landscape in which ideas could flourish or falter. In addition to the theological debates, the role of Sufism, a mystical branch of Islam, also left a mark on scholarly pursuits. Sufis sought to understand the divine through personal experience and contemplation, emphasizing the importance of inner knowledge alongside academic study. Imagine a scholar inspired by Sufi teachings, blending their rigorous textual analysis with a quest for spiritual insight, seeking not just to understand the world but also to experience the divine presence within it. Ultimately, the relationship between religion and scholarship in the 12th century Persian context was intricate and multifaceted. Scholars navigated the realms of faith and reason, often drawing strength and inspiration from their beliefs as they delved into the mysteries of the universe. The pursuit of knowledge was not merely an intellectual endeavor, it was an expression of devotion, a way to connect with the divine, and to understand the world around them. As we reflect on this interplay, consider how your own beliefs and values shape your understanding of the world. Just as these scholars sought to harmonize their faith with their inquiries, we too can draw connections between our personal beliefs and our pursuit of knowledge. So the next time you find yourself pondering life's great questions, think of those scholars who navigated the intricate dance of faith and intellect, ever striving for a deeper understanding of both the sacred and the empirical. As we dive deeper into the daily lives of 12th century Persian scholars, let's explore the tools of their trade, the very instruments that facilitated their intellectual pursuits. Contrary to the sleek, efficient technology we enjoy today, these scholars relied on a range of simple yet ingenious writing instruments and methods that shaped how they documented their thoughts and discoveries. Imagine a scholar seated at a modest table, surrounded by ink pots, quills, and stacks of parchment, each tool holding the potential to capture profound ideas. The heart of their writing process was the quill, a humble yet essential tool. Scholars often fashioned quills from the feathers of birds, such as geese or swans. Picture a scholar carefully selecting a feather, trimming it to perfection, and preparing it for use. The quill, once dipped in ink, became an extension of the scholar's mind, allowing their thoughts to flow onto the page. Historians still debate whether the quill's design influenced the style of writing or the nature of the thoughts produced. Some suggest that the delicate strokes of a quill encouraged a more meticulous and contemplative approach to writing, while others maintain that the ideas were paramount, regardless of the instrument. The ink used by these scholars was another crucial element of their craft. Made from natural materials, such as soot mixed with water and gum. The ink varied in quality and consistency. Imagine a scholar carefully crafting their ink, experimenting with ratios to achieve the right texture for writing. The resulting deep black color would create a stark contrast against the pale parchment, enhancing the legibility of their texts. However, the ink was not without its challenges. It could smudge, fade, or even dry too quickly, leading to frustrating moments during the writing process. Parchment, the primary writing surface, was made from animal skins, meticulously prepared to create a smooth writing surface. Scholars often carried their parchment with them, a portable canvas for their ideas. Imagine a scholar unrolling a fresh piece of parchment, its surface still slightly fragrant, ready to cradle their thoughts. Some scholars even took to recycling older manuscripts, erasing previous texts to make room for new ideas, a practice reflecting a level of resourcefulness that resonates with our modern, eco-conscious sensibilities. While these tools were fundamental, the actual process of writing was a laborious one. Scholars would often write in a script called Naskh, known for its clarity and elegance. Picture a scholar hunched over their work, carefully forming each letter, their hand moving fluidly across the page. The rhythm of writing became a meditation in itself, a chance to lose oneself in the act of creation. Yet, this process was not without its frustrations. Imagine the challenge of maintaining focus while grappling with the intricacies of language and thought. Historians also explore the role of schools and libraries in shaping the practices of these scholars. The madrasas were institutions where students were taught not only the content of various subjects, but also the techniques of writing and documentation. Picture a classroom filled with eager minds, each one learning the delicate art of writing, their voices mingling with the rustle of parchment as they practiced their skills. This sense of community fostered a culture of sharing techniques and ideas, creating a vibrant atmosphere for intellectual growth. In addition to writing, scholars also engaged in the art of copying texts, a practice that was essential for the preservation of knowledge. This meticulous process involved not only transcribing the words, but also ensuring accuracy and aesthetic presentation. Imagine a scholar hunched over a scroll, carefully checking each word against the original text, their commitment to preserving the integrity of knowledge driving them forward. However, the act of copying could also lead to the emergence of variant small differences that crept into texts over time. Historians still argue whether these variants enriched the tradition or muddied the waters of scholarly understanding. Some suggest that the evolution of texts allowed for new interpretations, while others lament the potential loss of original intent. It's a reminder that even the most careful processes are subject to the whims of human error and the passage of time. As the day transitioned into night, scholars would sometimes gather to share their writings, discussing their latest ideas and discoveries. Imagine the glow of oil lamps illuminating their faces as they exchanged thoughts on recent findings, each scholar eager to hear the insights of their peers. These gatherings provided a platform for collaboration, allowing scholars to refine their work based on the feedback of those they respected. In conclusion, the tools of the trade for 12th century Persian scholars were integral to their intellectual pursuits. From the quill and ink to the parchment, each element played a vital role in shaping their writing process, reflecting both the challenges and triumphs of their craft. As we ponder the intricacies of their tools, let's consider how the instruments we use today, be it technology or traditional methods, impact our own creative processes. Just as those scholars navigated the complexities of their tools, we too can harness the resources at our disposal to explore new ideas and express ourselves more fully. So, the next time you pick up a pen or tap on a keyboard, think of those diligent scholars from centuries past, crafting their thoughts with dedication and care, forever leaving their mark on the pages of history. As we continue our journey through the lives of 12th century Persian scholars, let's delve into the essence of their educational experiences, their methods of learning and teaching that shaped the intellectual landscape of the time. In a world where knowledge was primarily transmitted orally and through handwritten texts, education was a dynamic and interactive process. Imagine a classroom filled with eager students, their faces lit with curiosity as they absorbed the wisdom of their teachers, each moment an opportunity for discovery. At the heart of this educational system were the madrasas, institutions dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge. Picture a bustling madrasa, its courtyard alive with the sounds of discussion as students engage with one another in spirited debates. These institutions served as centers of learning, where scholars taught a variety of subjects, including theology, philosophy, mathematics, and astronomy. The curriculum was not rigid. Instead, it allowed for flexibility, encouraging students to explore their interests and engage deeply with the material. Historians still debate the extent to which the madrasa system influenced the development of education in other cultures. Some argue that the structure set a precedent for later academic institutions, while others maintain that it was a unique product of the Islamic world. Regardless, these centers of learning played a pivotal role in shaping the minds of young scholars, fostering a spirit of inquiry that transcended borders. The relationship between teacher and student was central to this educational experience. Scholars often took on apprentice-like roles, guiding students through the intricacies of thought and inquiry. Imagine a seasoned scholar, their eyes twinkling with wisdom, sharing insights with a group of eager minds. They would not only impart knowledge but also encourage critical thinking, fostering a culture of questioning and exploration. This mentorship was essential, as it instilled a sense of passion and purpose in the next generation of scholars. In addition to formal instruction, learning was often supplemented by discussions and debates. Picture a group of students gathered in a courtyard, exchanging ideas and challenging one another's perspectives. This dynamic exchange of thoughts was a hallmark of the educational process, allowing students to refine their arguments and deepen their understanding. It's reminiscent of modern-day seminars, where the interplay of ideas fosters intellectual growth. As we reflect on their methods, let's consider the importance of memorization in their education. Scholars placed great emphasis on the ability to memorize significant texts, a skill that was highly valued. Imagine a student reciting verses from the Quran or key philosophical concepts, their commitment to memory reflecting both discipline and reverence for the material. This practice not only solidified their knowledge, but also created a shared cultural foundation among scholars. Moreover, the act of copying texts served as a form of learning in itself. Scholars often transcribed works by hand, allowing them to engage intimately with the text. Picture a young scholar, quill in hand, carefully reproducing the works of great thinkers, absorbing their ideas through the process. This method of learning was a way to internalize knowledge, making it part of their intellectual fabric. Historians still argue whether such practices led to deeper understanding or simply rote memorization. As they progressed in their studies, students would often participate in public debates, showcasing their knowledge and skills. Imagine the excitement of a young scholar standing before an audience, articulating their arguments with passion and conviction. These debates were not only a rite of passage but also a means of establishing one's reputation within the academic community. The pressure to perform well could be intense, but the rewards, recognition, and respect were well worth the effort. However, the educational experience was not without challenges. Students often faced rigorous expectations, balancing their studies with the responsibilities of daily life. Picture a young scholar navigating the demands of homework while helping their family with chores. It was a delicate dance that required time management and resiliency, lesson that resonates even in our modern, fast-paced lives. Furthermore, the accessibility of education varied widely. While some scholars hailed from wealthy families that could afford to send their children to madrasas, others faced significant barriers. Historians still debate whether the system was inclusive or inherently elitist, with many students needing to rely on scholarships or community support to pursue their studies. It raises important questions about the role of education in shaping social dynamics and opportunities, questions that remain relevant today. As we consider the educational experiences of these scholars, we are reminded of the value of curiosity and the importance of nurturing young minds. Just as they forged their paths in the realm of knowledge, we too can inspire the next generation through mentorship and encouragement. In conclusion, the educational landscape of 12th century Persia was vibrant and multifaceted, characterized by dynamic interactions between teachers and students, an emphasis on critical thinking, and a commitment to preserving and expanding knowledge. As you reflect on your own educational journey, consider the role that curiosity, collaboration, and mentorship play in shaping your understanding of the world. Just as those scholars sought to uncover the mysteries of their time, we too can embrace the spirit of inquiry, paving the way for future discoveries and innovations. As we navigate further into the intricate lives of 12th century Persian scholars, it's time to examine the challenges they faced in their pursuit of knowledge, particularly the intellectual disputes and rivalries that marked their scholarly landscape. While one might romanticize the notion of scholars as solitary geniuses, the reality was often much more complicated, characterized by spirited debates, disagreements, and the occasional clash of egos. Imagine a packed lecture hall, filled with scholars passionately voicing their opinions, each vying to assert their understanding of complex ideas. These intellectual disputes were often fueled by the rich diversity of thought that permeated the scholarly community. Scholars frequently debated interpretations of texts, philosophical concepts, and scientific theories. Picture two scholars engaged in a heated discussion over the nature of existence, their voices rising as they passionately defend their viewpoints. These debates not only tested their own understanding but also pushed the boundaries of knowledge, inviting new interpretations and insights. Historians still argue about the nature of these disputes. Are they primarily constructive exchanges aimed at deepening understanding, or did they devolve into rivalries, hindering collaboration? On one hand, these intellectual clashes could drive scholars to refine their own ideas, challenging them to think critically and articulate their arguments more effectively. Yet on the other hand, the competitive nature of the discourse could lead to personal animosities, with scholars feeling the weight of reputation and pride on their shoulders. The competitive spirit was particularly evident in the realm of mathematics and astronomy, where claims to discovery could ignite fierce debates. Imagine a scholar presenting a groundbreaking theorem, only to be met with skepticism from peers who had their own interpretations. The desire to be recognized as the authority could fuel tensions, leading to formal rebuttals and counter-arguments. Such rivalries could sometimes overshadow the collaborative spirit that is so vital to intellectual progress, creating an atmosphere of caution among scholars who might otherwise pursue partnerships. Even within the realm of religious interpretation, tensions could arise. Scholars often grappled with differing views on theological matters, leading to passionate discussions that could escalate quickly. Picture a gathering of scholars discussing the nature of the divine, their perspectives shaped by their personal beliefs and backgrounds. These exchanges often reflected broader societal tensions, as differing interpretations of texts could have real-world implications for communities. It's a reminder of how scholarship is never truly isolated from the social and political contexts in which it exists. Yet, despite the challenges posed by rivalries and disputes, there was also a prevailing sense of respect for intellectual integrity. Even amid disagreements, scholars often recognize the value of differing perspectives. Picture two scholars, after a heated debate, sharing a moment of mutual admiration as they acknowledge each other's dedication to the pursuit of knowledge. This respect could lead to collaborations in the aftermath of disputes, as they realized that the pursuit of truth was greater than personal pride. Moreover, the presence of patronage played a significant role in shaping these intellectual rivalries. Many scholars relied on wealthy patrons who supported their work in exchange for loyalty and respect. Imagine the delicate balance of navigating personal relationships, while simultaneously vying for the favor of influential figures. The pressure to align one's work with the expectations of a patron could complicate scholarly integrity, as the desire for funding might influence the direction of research or debate. Additionally, the act of writing itself could serve as a battleground for ideas. Scholars often published their works in response to one another, engaging in what could be described as a literary sparring match. Imagine a scholar penning a critical review of a rival's thesis, the words carefully chosen to challenge the validity of their claims, while asserting their own perspectives. This written discourse became part of the broader intellectual landscape, illustrating how scholarship was not just a personal pursuit, but also a communal endeavor. Despite the challenges brought on by rivalries, these intellectual disputes ultimately served a vital purpose in advancing knowledge. They spurred on creativity and innovation, forcing scholars to refine their arguments and think critically about their beliefs. The friction of differing ideas could lead to breakthroughs, as scholars were pushed to explore new avenues of thought. In conclusion, the challenges faced by 12th century Persian scholars were multifaceted, rooted in these complexities of intellectual rivalry and debate. While these disputes could be sources of tension, they were also instrumental in propelling the evolution of knowledge. As we reflect on these dynamics, consider how the spirit of healthy debate and inquiry can lead to growth and discovery in our own lives. Just as those scholars navigated the intricacies of their intellectual landscape, we too can embrace the power of dialogue and exploration, paving the way for new ideas and insights. As we delve deeper into the lives of 12th century Persian scholars, it's essential to acknowledge the connections they forged across borders and intricate web of scholarly networks that transcended geographic and cultural boundaries. While we often think of the great Persian Empire as a singular entity, it was, in fact, a vibrant mosaic of diverse cultures, languages, and ideas. Imagine scholars from different regions coming together, sharing insights, and building relationships that would shape the intellectual landscape of the time. Travel played a crucial role in these connections. Scholars often embarked on journeys to seek knowledge from far-off lands, visiting bustling cities along trade routes such as the Silk Road. Picture a scholar setting off on a long trek across the desert, with the promise of new ideas and texts motivating their every step. These travels allowed them to encounter different philosophical thought, scientific advancements, and cultural practices, enriching their own understanding and contributions to their fields. Historians still debate the extent to which these cross-cultural exchanges influenced the development of knowledge during this period. Some argue that the blending of ideas from East and West led to significant advancements in various disciplines, while others caution against oversimplifying the complexities of these interactions. Regardless, it's clear that the openness to diverse perspectives played a vital role in the intellectual growth of these scholars. One of the most notable hubs of intellectual exchange was Baghdad, often referred to as the City of Peace. This cosmopolitan center attracted scholars from all over the Islamic world and beyond, serving as a melting pot of ideas and knowledge. Imagine the bustling streets filled with merchants, travelers, and scholars, all engaged in the vibrant exchange of knowledge. The House of Wisdom, established during the Abbasid Caliphate, became a renowned institution where scholars collaborated on translations, research, and discussions. It was a place where ideas flowed freely, much like a modern university campus. Additionally, these networks of knowledge were often facilitated by written correspondence. Scholars would send letters to one another, sharing their findings, asking questions, and seeking explanations. Imagine a letter being penned, the scholar's thoughts flowing onto the parchment as they reach out to a colleague in a distant land. These written exchanges not only fostered collaboration but also created a sense of community among scholars, separated by vast distances. As scholars exchanged ideas, they often translated works from other cultures, particularly ancient Greek and Roman texts. This translation movement was pivotal in preserving and disseminating knowledge. Picture a scholar hunched over an ancient manuscript, their quill poised, as they painstakingly translate complex ideas into Arabic, making them accessible to a wider audience. This act of translation was not merely linguistic, it was an intellectual endeavor that involved interpreting and contextualizing ideas for a new audience. Historians still argue about the significance of this movement and view it as a catalyst for the Renaissance, while others emphasize its role in the continuity of knowledge. Moreover, the intermingling of ideas often led to innovative breakthroughs. Scholars would incorporate diverse philosophical frameworks into their own work, creating unique syntheses of thought. Imagine a Persian scholar weaving elements of Greek philosophy with Islamic principles, resulting in a rich tapestry of knowledge that challenged existing paradigms. This blending of ideas not only enriched their own scholarship but also laid the groundwork for future generations of thinkers. However, these networks went without their challenges. Political turmoil, war, and shifting power dynamics could disrupt the flow of knowledge and complicate relationships between scholars. Imagine a scholar from one region unable to travel to a neighboring city due to conflict, their potential collaboration stifled by external circumstances. Despite these obstacles, the resilience of scholars often allowed them to adapt, finding ways to continue their work even in the face of adversity. The role of patronage also played a significant part in facilitating these connections. Wealthy patrons would support scholars in exchange for loyalty and the promise of knowledge that would enhance their own status. Imagine a scholar receiving a generous grant from a patron, enabling them to pursue their research unhindered. These relationships, while sometimes fraught with tensions, fostered a sense of interconnectedness in the scholarly community. In conclusion, the connections forged by 12th century Persian scholars across borders were foundational to the development of knowledge during this period. Their willingness to engage with diverse perspectives, travel to distant lands, and collaborate through letters and translations created a rich intellectual environment that transcended regional boundaries. As we reflect on these connections, let's consider the value of collaboration and the importance of embracing diverse viewpoints in our own pursuits. Just as those scholars navigated the complexities of their world through dialogue and exchange, we too can foster connections that enhance our understanding and fuel our curiosity. As we continue our exploration of 12th century Persian scholarship, it's time to shine a light on the often overlooked contributions of women in this vibrant intellectual landscape. While many historical narratives tend to focus on male scholars, it is essential to recognize the significant roles that women played in the pursuit of knowledge. Imagine the quiet yet determined female scholars, philosophers, and poets who navigated the complexities of a male-dominated world, carving out their spaces within it. During this era, women often faced considerable societal constraints that limited their access to formal education. Yet, many found ways to engage with scholarly pursuits through familial connections, often raised in households where knowledge was valued. Picture a woman sitting in a modest room, her father or brother teaching her to read and write, sharing the wisdom of texts that were otherwise reserved for male scholars. This familial learning created a unique dynamic, where women could absorb knowledge despite the limitations imposed by society. Historians still debate the extent to which women participated in formal scholarly life during this period. Some argue that while their contributions may have been less visible, they were nonetheless influential, shaping intellectual discourse from the shadows. Others highlight specific instances of women who defied norms and emerged as prominent figures in their own right. For example, scholars like Fatima al-Fayri, who founded the University of Al-Qarawiyyin in Morocco, recognized as one of the oldest existing educational institutions in the world, exemplify how women could challenge societal expectations to pursue knowledge and leadership. In addition to formal scholars, women played crucial roles as patrons of learning. Wealthy women often supported scholars and institutions, providing funding and resources that allowed intellectual endeavors to flourish. Imagine a wealthy matron hosting gatherings in her home, where scholars would discuss philosophy and science over lavish meals. These women used their social influence to shape the avenues of knowledge and create spaces where ideas could thrive. Moreover, women engaged in literary pursuits, writing poetry and prose that reflected their perspectives and experiences. Picture a female poet, her words flowing onto the page, expressing thoughts on love, spirituality, or the trials of life. Although their works may not have been as widely circulated as those of their male counterparts, women's literature offered valuable insights into the emotional and intellectual lives of women during this period. It's reminiscent of modern literary movements that seek to amplify female voices, drawing attention to the unique narratives often overlooked in historical accounts. The existence of female scholars also raises essential questions about the interplay between gender and scholarship. Historians still grapple with the complexities of this relationship, considering factors such as access to education, the role of family, and societal expectations. Some argue that women's contributions were essential to the intellectual climate of the time, while others point to the barriers that limited their visibility. Regardless, their influence was felt, and their voices, though sometimes muted, contributed to the broader tapestry of knowledge. In the realm of science and medicine, women also made notable contributions. Some were known as healers or midwives, possessing valuable knowledge of herbal remedies and medical practices. Imagine a woman tending to her community, wielding her understanding of medicinal plants to care for the sick. Their expertise often intertwined with the scholarly pursuits of male physicians, creating a collaborative environment where knowledge was shared across gender lines. Despite the challenges, the resilience of women in scholarship is a testament to their tenacity and intellect. Many women who sought knowledge often faced resistance, yet they persevered, advocating for their right to learn and contribute. Picture a young woman passionately arguing for her place in the scholarly community, her determination shining through as she challenges the norms of her time. Their stories, while less frequently told, remind us of the silent strength that has propelled intellectual discourse throughout history. As we reflect on the contributions of women in 12th century Persian scholarship, it's vital to recognize their roles as scholars, patrons, poets, and healers. Their presence and influence, though sometimes obscured by the dominant narratives of history, were integral to the vibrancy of the intellectual landscape. Just as we strive to understand the full scope of history, let's also commit to amplifying the voices of those who have been overlooked in the past. In conclusion, the stories of female scholars in the 12th century remind us that the pursuit of knowledge is not confined by gender. It is a universal quest that transcends societal boundaries, woven into the fabric of humanity. As we navigate our own journeys of learning, let's draw inspiration from the resilient women who dared to challenge conventions and pursue their intellectual aspirations. Their contributions, both seen and unseen, continue to shape the discourse of knowledge today. As we reach the later stages of our exploration of 12th century Persian scholars, it's essential to examine the art of translation, a pivotal activity that served as a bridge between cultures and led to the dissemination of knowledge across regions. The translation movement during this period not only preserved ancient texts, but also introduced new ideas that would profoundly influence the Islamic Golden Age and beyond. Imagine a scholar in a dimly lit room, surrounded by stacks of manuscripts, painstakingly translating a Greek philosophical text into Arabic, each word a crucial link in the chain of knowledge. At the heart of this translation movement was a sense of urgency. Scholars recognized the importance of preserving the works of earlier thinkers, particularly those of Greek and Roman origins. Picture them gathering in libraries, poring over ancient manuscripts that had been neglected for centuries, eager to revive the intellectual discourse contained within those pages. The drive to translate was fueled by a desire to build upon the foundations laid by past philosophers, thus creating a living tradition of scholarship. Historians still debate the motivations behind this translation movement. Some argue that it was primarily driven by a need to access knowledge that could enhance scientific and philosophical inquiry, while others contend that it was rooted in a cultural pride that sought to showcase the Islamic world as a custodian of wisdom. Regardless of the motivations, the impact of these translations was undeniable. Scholars began to engage with the works of Plato, Aristotle, Galen, and others, incorporating their ideas into their own thinking and generating new insights. The process of translation was not merely about converting words from one language to another. It involved deep comprehension and interpretation. Imagine a scholar meticulously analyzing a text, wrestling with the nuances of language, striving to capture the original meaning while making it accessible to a new audience. This act of interpretation often required the translator to grapple with complex philosophical concepts, leading to richer discussions and debates among contemporaries. One of the most notable centers for translation during this period was Baghdad, particularly within the House of Wisdom. Here, scholars from various backgrounds came together to translate texts, collaborate on research, and share ideas. Picture a diverse group of scholars working side by side, each contributing their expertise to the collective effort. This environment fostered collaboration, allowing for the cross-pollination of ideas that would ultimately lead to advancements in various fields. The translation movement also highlighted the importance of language in shaping thought. Scholars recognized that the language in which a text was written could influence its interpretation. Imagine a scholar reflecting on the differences between Greek and Arabic philosophical terms, pondering how their meanings might shift in translation. This awareness of linguistic nuance added another layer of complexity to the act of translation, emphasizing the role of language as a vital tool for understanding. Furthermore, the translations often sparked new inquiries, invigorating intellectual debate within the scholarly community. Imagine a scholar reading a translated text and suddenly feeling inspired to challenge its premises, leading to a lively discussion with peers. This environment of inquiry fostered a culture where questions were encouraged and differing viewpoints were valued, a dynamic that propelled the advancement of knowledge. However, the translation movement was not without its challenges. The task of translating complex texts often led to errors, with nuances lost in the process. Historians still argue about the impact of these inaccuracies. On one hand, some believe that these errors hindered the transmission of knowledge. On the other hand, others argue that they opened new avenues for interpretation and debate. The reality likely lies somewhere in between, highlighting the delicate balance between fidelity to the original text and the need for accessibility. As we consider the legacy of the translation movement, it's important to recognize how it laid the groundwork for future generations of scholars. The ideas that emerged from these translations formed the basis for the Renaissance in Europe and influenced scientific thought for centuries to come. Imagine how the interconnectedness of ideas, facilitated by translation, created an intellectual lineage that transcended borders and time. In conclusion, the art of translation in 12th century Persia was a vital force in shaping the landscape of knowledge. It catalyzed the revival of ancient wisdom, fostering an environment of inquiry and debate that would resonate through the ages. As we reflect on this movement, let's consider the power of language in shaping our understanding of the world. Just as those scholars navigated the complexities of translation, we too can appreciate the richness of diverse perspectives and the importance of communication in our pursuit of knowledge. So, the next time you encounter a translated text, be it literature, philosophy, or science, take a moment to appreciate the labor and thought that went into making those ideas accessible. The act of translation serves as a reminder that knowledge is not stagnant. It is a living, breathing entity that thrives on exchange and collaboration. As we draw closer to the end of our exploration of 12th century Persian scholars, it is essential to reflect on this enduring legacy of their work. Their intellectual contributions have shaped modern thought and continue to influence various fields today. The scholarly pursuits of these individuals were not isolated events, rather they laid the groundwork for advancements in science, philosophy, medicine, and the arts that resonate to this day. Imagine gazing back in time, witnessing the seeds of knowledge being planted, each one destined to grow into the rich tapestry of modern understanding. One of the most significant legacies of these scholars lies in their contributions to mathematics and astronomy. Figures such as Al-Khwarizmi, often dubbed the father of algebra, developed mathematical principles that laid the foundation for modern algebra. Imagine a scholar working through complex equations, their insights not just advancing mathematical thought but also influencing the development of algorithms, a concept that underpins much of our digital world today. The introduction of the Indo-Arabic numeral system dramatically changed how numbers were represented and manipulated, making calculations more efficient and accessible than the cumbersome Roman numeral system. In the field of astronomy, Persian scholars made remarkable strides in understanding celestial bodies and their movements. They built on the works of earlier astronomers, such as Ptolemy, while also challenging existing models. Picture an observatory filled with scholars diligently tracking the positions of stars and planets. Using sophisticated instruments they designed themselves. The development of astrolabes and advancements in trigonometry not only refined navigational techniques, but also laid the groundwork for later explorations and discoveries during the Age of Exploration. The influence of Persian scholars was also felt in medicine, where figures like Avicenna in Sina authored texts that would become standard references for centuries. His work, the Canon of Medicine, synthesized knowledge from various traditions and introduced concepts that are still foundational in medical education today. Imagine a scholar meticulously categorizing diseases, treatments, and pharmacological substances, creating a compendium that would guide practitioners for generations. The emphasis on empirical observation and critical thinking in medicine during this era foreshadowed the scientific method that would later flourish in Europe. Philosophically, Persian scholars contributed to a rich dialogue that intertwined Islamic thought with Greek philosophy. Thinkers such as Al-Farabi and Al-Ghazali explored ethical and metaphysical questions, bridging cultural divides and influencing the development of Western philosophy. Their works examined the nature of reality, the existence of God, and the human condition, inviting inquiry and reflection that would echo through the ages. This intellectual exchange laid the groundwork for the later Renaissance, where the re-emergence of classical ideas would catalyze significant cultural and scientific advancements. Furthermore, the art and literature produced during this time left an indelible mark on Persian culture and beyond. The poetic works of Rumi and Omar Khayyam, for instance, not only expressed profound philosophical ideas, but also captured the human experience in ways that resonate with readers to this day. Imagine reciting verses that explore the depths of love and the mysteries of existence, connecting readers across time and cultures through shared emotions and reflections. The legacy of 12th century Persian scholars also extends to contemporary discussions surrounding multiculturalism and the sharing of knowledge. Their willingness to engage with diverse ideas and perspectives serves as a reminder of the importance of collaboration and dialogue in our increasingly interconnected world. As we navigate the complexities of modern life, we can draw inspiration from these scholars' commitment to inquiry and their belief in the transformative power of knowledge. Historians continue to explore the lasting impact of these scholars on various academic disciplines, recognizing how their work laid the foundation for future generations. The connections forged across cultures and the synthesis of diverse ideas have contributed to an enduring intellectual heritage that transcends geographical boundaries. In conclusion, the legacy of 12th century Persian scholars is a testament to the enduring power of knowledge and the human spirit's quest for understanding. Their contributions in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, philosophy, and the arts have shaped modern thought in ways that are often taken for granted. As we reflect on their extraordinary achievements, let's consider how we can carry forward their spirit of inquiry, collaboration, and open-mindedness in our own pursuits of knowledge. So, as you go about your day, take a moment to appreciate the rich tapestry of ideas that have emerged from the past, and continue to influence the present. Each thought, each discovery, is a thread woven into the fabric of human understanding, connecting us across time and space in our shared journey of exploration and enlightenment. As we approach the conclusion of our exploration into the intriguing lives of 12th century Persian scholars, it's essential to reflect on the factors that eventually led to the decline of this vibrant culture of scholarship. While the period was marked by remarkable contributions and a flourishing intellectual community, various social, political, and economic challenges converged to stifle this golden age of knowledge. Imagine the once bustling libraries, now quiet, the fervent debates that filled the air slowly fading into silence, as the very foundation of scholarship began to erode. One of the significant factors contributing to the decline was the rise of political instability within the region. The fragmentation of the Persian Empire into smaller states and the emergence of competing powers made it increasingly challenging for scholars to pursue their work unhindered. Picture a once thriving city like Baghdad, with its vibrant intellectual life, now grappling with the chaos of war and political strife. As territories shifted and empires rose and fell, the support for scholars dwindled and the resources necessary for education and research became scarce. The Mongol invasion in the 13th century was particularly devastating. Imagine the destruction of the House of Wisdom and the loss of countless manuscripts and texts during the siege of Baghdad in 1258. This cataclysmic event not only decimated the physical centers of learning but also instilled fear and uncertainty within the scholarly community. The once thriving exchange of ideas and knowledge faced a significant setback, as the cultural and intellectual fabric of society was torn apart, leading to a chilling stagnation in intellectual pursuits. In addition to external pressures, these changing dynamics of religion played a crucial role in shaping the decline of scholarship. As orthodox interpretations of Islam gained dominance, there was a growing resistance to divergent philosophical or scientific ideas that contradicted established belief. Scholars who dared to challenge prevailing doctrines often found themselves on shaky ground. Imagine a once respected scholar facing censure for questioning traditional views, their voice stifled by the very community that once celebrated open inquiry. This shift toward orthodoxy stifled the spirit of intellectual exploration that had characterized the earlier Golden Age, leading many scholars to retreat from public discourse. Economic factors also contributed to the decline of scholarship. As the political landscape became fragmented, resources that had once supported education and the sciences dwindled. Wealthy patrons who previously funded scholars began to prioritize their own interests, or turned their attention to military endeavors. Picture a brilliant young scholar yearning for knowledge but unable to pursue their studies due to a lack of financial support. The diminishing patronage led to fewer opportunities for scholarly work and innovation, further eroding the vibrant tapestry of intellectual life. Additionally, shifts in trade routes and economic power dynamics altered the landscape of learning. The rise of European powers and the eventual establishment of the Age of Exploration opened new avenues for knowledge but also shifted the centers of intellectual activity away from the Islamic world. As trade routes evolved, so too did the flow of knowledge, with European scholars beginning to dominate the discourse that had once flourished in the Islamic Golden Age. Imagine a scholar in Persia, once at the forefront of scientific inquiry, now overshadowed by developments occurring elsewhere, a poignant reminder of how quickly the tides of fortune can shift. Despite these challenges, it is crucial to acknowledge that the legacy of Persian scholars did not disappear entirely. Although the decline marked the end of a significant era, the intellectual traditions they cultivated continued to influence subsequent generations. The works of these scholars were preserved, translated, and eventually rediscovered by European thinkers during the Renaissance. Their contributions became intertwined with the broader narrative of human knowledge, serving as a vital link between ancient wisdom and modern thought. In conclusion, the decline of 12th century Persian scholarship was a complex interplay of political instability, religious orthodoxy, economic challenges, and shifting power dynamics. While this period came to an end, the spirit of inquiry and the pursuit of knowledge cultivated by these scholars left an indelible mark on history. As we reflect on their contributions, let's not forget that the quest for understanding is a continuous journey, one that transcends time and borders. So, as you continue on your path of learning and discovery, remember the scholars of the past who dared to push boundaries, challenge conventions, and seek answers to life's profound questions. Their legacy encourages us to embrace curiosity, foster dialogue, and celebrate the diverse perspectives that enrich our understanding of the world. In that spirit, we can honor their memory by carrying forward the torch of knowledge, illuminating the way for future generations.